In the last lesson, we worked on creating these outlines for mountains or cliffs that I'm going to add later on after completing the animation part. And we also created the outlines for the mountains in the back as well. And then we animated our character using Mixamo and we brought that animation into Unreal. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how you can bring in a weapon and attach that weapon to this character to follow this animation. So first up, I'm going to go into Content Browser, go into the Content folder, and I'm going to create a new folder here. Come on. I'm going to call this as 3D underscore models. I'm going to open this folder and I'm going to now open the FBX file of the weapon that I'm going to use for this particular character. I'll provide you with the link of the 3D model of that weapon so that you can download that weapon from CG Trader free of cost. Okay. So I'm going to go into import and quickly select the FBX file of the weapon that I'm going to use. I'll disable generate missing collisions because I don't want any sort of collisions. I'll click on import all and there we go. Let's now import the textures as well. I'm going to select all these textures and open them. I'm going to save everything and let's bring this weapon into the scene. I'm going to select these static meshes and bring them into the scene. And this is the sci-fi rifle that we're going to use for this particular shot. And as you can see, it's pretty big for this particular character. So we're going to have to scale this down. But first, let's apply some materials. I'm going to create a material and I'm going to call this as M underscore basic underscore weapon. I'm going to open this one and let's bring in some textures. I'm going to press Control and Spacebar to bring in this content drawer. I'm going to go into 3D models and I'm going to drag these textures and bring them into my material graph. Let's align them. Okay, so the first one here is the base color as indicated by the naming convention as well. I'm going to select this one to base color. And in here, I have the normal texture. Okay, so I'm going to connect this one to normal. And the one in the middle is actually an ORM texture. An ORM texture is the combination of occlusion map or ambient occlusion, roughness, and metallic. So it is the combination of 3 different textures that is being projected on a single map. So the question in here is that how you can separate these 3 textures so that you can connect these maps with their respective nodes. And the answer is that you don't have to separate these 3 maps. These maps are already separated and divided into 3 different channels, R, G, and B. R for ambient occlusion, G for roughness, and B for metallic. So all you have to do is to memorize that ORM stands for ambient occlusion, roughness, metallic. And they are divided into 3 different channels, R, G, and B. Okay, so you just need to connect RGB with their respective nodes, and that is pretty much it. You don't have to separate these textures. They are already separated into 3 different channels. Okay, so I'm going to save this map and come out of this one. Let's create a material instance as well. And I'm going to apply that material instance on this one. And as you can see, we have 3 different meshes that actually make up this model. So I'm going to have to apply this material on all of them. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So let's make things a little bit easier. What I'm going to do in here is to combine these 3 meshes into a single mesh for this model so that I can easily attach that model with my character. So what I'm going to do in here is to first up go into edit and plugins. I'm going to have to enable a plugin. I'm going to search for modeling tools. Okay. Modeling tools in editor mode. I'm going to check this box, click yes, and I'm going to have to restart Unreal, save everything. And now after restarting Unreal, if I'll go into this drop down menu, you can see that we have now a new section in here, which is called as modeling mode. Okay. So what I'm going to do in here is to select these 3 meshes that make up this model. And I'm going to go into modeling mode. I'm going to go into this option, transform and conversion. I'm going to go into merge. Okay. And I'm going to change this to current folder. And I'm going to go into the folder where I imported the FBX file of this model. And I'm going to click on accept. Now, if I'll go back into the selection mode, you can see that we have only one single mesh making up this particular model. So this is going to make our job a little bit easier when we attach this weapon to this character. And you can also see that we have this new combined mesh in our content browser as well. You can also delete these 3 if you want. Let's just delete them. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to rename this weapon as sci-fi rifle. And now I'm going to save everything. And one more thing that we need to do before we actually attach this weapon to this character is that we're going to have to select this character. We're going to have to add a socket on the right hand bone of this character. Okay. And this is going to allow this weapon to eventually move with this character. So what I'm going to do in here is to simply select this character, open up the skeletal mesh, and I'm going to scroll down to right hand. There we go. There it is. You can see there's the right hand bone. And I'm going to now just click my right mouse button. It's going to give us this drop down menu, and I'm going to select this one, this option, add socket. And as you can see, it has added a new socket in here, right hand socket. I'm going to now close this one. We save everything again. And let's now open our level sequence. I'm going to go into my level sequence, open up the first shot. And as you can see that we have this animation in here. And what I'm going to do in here is to bring the playhead to maybe just about there. And then I'm going to select this weapon. I'm going to drag this weapon and bring this into my level sequence. I think I forgot to unlock my level sequence. There we go. Let's try this again. Boom. Okay. So yeah. Now what I'm going to do is to let me just delete this transform parameter. Otherwise it's going to add the keyframes by itself for some reason. And I'm going to now click on this plus icon. I'm going to go into attach. And in here, you can see we have the name of our skeletal mesh. You can select this one from here as well. Or if for some reason it doesn't show up in here, what you can do is you can simply go into new binding. And in here, I'm going to select this skeletal mesh. And it's going to show up the list of all the bones that I can use to attach this weapon. But I'm going to find my right hand socket that I created inside that skeletal mesh. And as you can see in this case, it is showing up right on top. Okay. If it doesn't show up, you can search for that as well, or you can just manually look for that in this list. But for the most part, you're gonna see that in here. So I'm gonna just select that right hand socket, and Unreal Engine has now attached that weapon to this character. Okay, I'm gonna drag the sequence and snap it to frame number 0. And now what we need to do is we need to select this rifle, and I'm going to click on this reset button, and as you can see, we now have this rifle attached to the right hand socket. And if I'll play this animation, sorry, you can see our weapon is now attached. Let me remove this keyframe and remove the transform parameter. Okay, so yeah, now you can see that it is attached to the right hand socket, but somehow the orientation still needs to be done. So we're going to have to do that manually. And before doing so, there is something that I'd like to mention in here, which is that this animation was not particularly designed for this weapon. Neither was this character designed for this particular animation that we used in Mixamo. As I mentioned beforehand, that Mixamo follows a general algorithm, which is not going to work for every character that you upload in there. Same is the case for this weapon as well. So we're not going to be able to 100% accurately place this in the hands of this character, okay? Of course, if you're good with rigging or animating stuff, I'll highly recommend you to import this animation and this weapon inside Blender or any other 3D software and adjust this animation for this particular weapon. For the sake of this tutorial series, I'm going to prioritize process over perfection, which means that I'm going to show you a process, how you can manually adjust this weapon on this character. But I'm not going to spend too much time on perfection because we have plenty of work to do. Now, of course, for the sake of tutorial series, you can follow along this process. But if you're good with animating or rigging stuff, I'll highly recommend you to please go inside Blender or Maya or any other 3D software you want and adjust this animation for this particular weapon. Because at this point, if I minimize Unreal Engine and open up Blender to adjust this animation for this particular weapon or for this particular character, it's going to take too much time and we have a number of animations for this course. Okay, so I'm just going to follow a rough process for the sake of demonstration and for the sake of this tutorial series. Okay, so I'm going to now select this weapon and see how I can adjust this weapon for this character in a very short time. Okay. So I'm gonna just come in here and move this up on Z and rotate it like so. And I think I'm gonna have to scale this thing up. Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna have to take a look on the other side and see if it is overlapping. Yeah, it is overlapping. So I'm gonna have to scale this thing down and maybe, but first I think I should move this on Y and then scale it up if I can. Maybe somewhere around here. And I'm gonna move this thing forward, bring this thing up, maybe a little bit forward. I'm gonna focus on the other side because this is the angle that's going to be visible from the camera. Okay. So let me adjust this quickly. Maybe just about there. No, I think maybe a little bit on Y and maybe a little bit on Z. Not sure. Maybe just about there. And I think I should adjust this arm manually. So what I'm gonna do in here is to save everything. I'm gonna remove this transform parameter again and lock the sequencer. I'm gonna go into my content browser. Let me just search for this animation real quick, and I'm gonna open the skeletal mesh, open up the animation, and um, I'm gonna have to adjust the bones of this character manually. I'm gonna talk this in here. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to frame number 2000. Let's say you can choose any frame if you want. You just need to know one thing that make sure you make all those changes on that particular frame number. Don't make these changes on different frame numbers. For example, I've chosen frame number 2000 here. So I'm going to make all those changes in frame number 2000. Okay. So what I'm going to do in here is to, let me see how this looks like from here. Okay. I'm going to first have to move the shoulder bone of the left arm. I'm going to select this left shoulder bone and change this to world space, rotate this thing on Z fractionally and add a keyframe. Make sure you add a keyframe whenever you change anything. Otherwise, these changes are not going to affect your character in the scene. Okay. We're going to go back into my scene and yeah, perhaps this looks good. I just have to now select the left hand and rotate it like so and add a keyframe. As you can see that I'm not moving the frame number here. The frame number is going to be 2000 all along. You don't necessarily have to select 2000. You can select any frame you want. Just make sure that you stick to that frame number, okay? All right, so I think it looks a little bit better now. Yeah. I'm gonna have to rotate this thing on X and move it like so. Then I'm gonna have to place it here. And let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna select the left shoulder again and rotate this bone again. Add a keyframe. Let's see, perhaps that was a little bit too much. Maybe just about there. Add a keyframe. Still too much. Let's try this again. Yeah, now it looks good. Okay, now I just have to rotate this shoulder and make this weapon rest on this hand. So let's see what we can do with this one. I'm gonna go back into the animation and I'm gonna rotate this thing on X and add a keyframe. It's a little bit better, but still need to improve this. Let's try this again. And I think maybe perhaps we should do a little bit more. I'm gonna add a keyframe again. And as you can see now, it looks much better. Okay, so this is the side that's gonna be visible to my camera. So that is why I'm not focusing on the other side. Of course, if I try to adjust this on the other side as well, it's gonna take too much time. So that is why I'm only focusing on the side which is going to be visible to my camera. Okay, so I believe somehow this looks good. It's not perfect, of course. It's far from being perfect actually, but somehow for the sake of demonstration of this course, I think this is going to work. And um, let me press G to hide this icon because I think the camera is getting in the way. Okay, so it looks good at this particular frame number, but if I move my playhead to frame number 0, you can see it looks awful. So what you can do in here is to animate this weapon and place it on this hand at frame number 0. And then, you can keep this particular position at frame number 55. Of course, this is not how things should be done. These things should be done in a proper 3D software. But as I said earlier, that we have a number of animations to work with, and it's going to take too much time to import everything in Blender and then fix all the stuff. Okay, so let's see if I can find a way around this one. I'm going to unlock this sequencer, and I'm going to bring in my transform parameter. At frame number 55, I'm going to keep these transform values, and at frame number 0, what I'm going to do in here is to rotate this weapon like so and move this thing just about there. And I think I should also move this on Y as well. Now I'm not sure if this is going to work, so let's see. I think I'm going to have a better idea of how to work on this one once I actually animate the camera. And after animating this camera, we're going to have a better idea of what's actually going to be visible so that we can adjust accordingly. Okay. So in the next lesson, we're going to animate this camera to create a very cinematic looking animation. And then once we'll know the areas that are going to be visible to our camera, then we can adjust this weapon for this character. So I'll see you guys in the next one.